It's waiver wire time, week 1, preemptive style. Who do you grab right now before week 1 actually kicks off? Because the last thing you want to do is be looking through the waiver wire, hunting through the weeds to try and get yourself that player you should have picked up before week 1 kicked off, that player you should have traded for. That's right. Traded for before week 1. Some of these guys might not be available, but you might want to trade for them because the message here is that they're going to be valuable potentially walking into week number 1. Let's break down week 1 waiver wire preemptive style. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
From the fantasyfootballshow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.
Welcome in, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's break down the week number 1 waiver wire video. And let's start off with the RBs and talk about a guy named Jalen Wright. This guy can be a league winner, and he's out there available in an uncomfortable amount of leagues. I'm not saying he's available in leagues where you guys have huge benches. I get it. But this is, again, a segment that doesn't just help you with guys to pick up, but guys to trade for. Wright can be a league winner. The moment Mostert goes down, and at some point he will, he's 87 years old, this guy is going to go to the moon because this guy, Achane, is compartmentalized into his own little volume circle. There's no Achane eats into Mostert's work, and that Achane and Mostert or Achane and Wright can't survive on their own. These two positions, the up the gut running back, which is Mostert or Wright, and the Deebo Samuel type role, the wide back, created by Miami Mike McDaniel, one of the architects, one of the main architects, maybe the main architect of the Deebo Samuel wide back role, has created such a role for Achane that is compartmentalized. He's a running back wide receiver versus a wide receiver running back, but it's the same concept. And while this guy, Wright, probably won't be getting up the gut work on the regular, at least consistent enough to be a guy you start week in and week out. He might have a pop-off week here or there, big breakaway 50, 60-yard touchdown run, and people go, oh my God, do I start him next week? But he will be inconsistent until Mostert gets out of the lineup. But the moment Mostert is injured, and again, at some point he will, this guy wins leagues. So in leagues where you have maybe small benches, 4, 5, 6 bench spots you're kind of combing through, this guy's going to be available, and you're going to have a dilemma on who do you cut to go get him. Now, if he is not available in your league, and let's say you own Mostert, you need him. Him and Mostert are one and the same. The duo is running back 2 gold in a sense. I think that if you have Mostert and Wright together, you have a bona fide elite running back 2. Maybe that plays like a running back 1 at times. And again, it has nothing to do with Achane. Now, you hear me say all the time, the best cuff in fantasy is Kyren and Corum, but a very close second place is Achane, Wright, and Mostert, all 3 of them cuffed together. And when you say, and many people do on the daily, in comments and DMs and emails and on the street corners, Smitty, this is ridiculous, spending 3 spots on 1 starting player. I've never heard of this before. Well, you've also never heard of the Miami Dolphin running attack before, because this is a new thing. You got to be an innovative person in order to think outside the box. You got to not stick to the same old, same old. This is a different situation. This is not your dad's running back room. This is the Miami Dolphins running back room, and you can own all 3, but the universal handcuff is Wright. If you have Achane and you can't get all 3, you need to have Wright. If either one of these guys goes down, Wright goes in there and he'll be a beast. He's universal. So I tell you this so you can go trade for Wright using whatever you got to trade to cuff him to Mostert if you own Mostert. If you own Achane, you must cuff him to Wright if you can't cuff all 3. And then it's going to be awkward. There are going to be a lot of people that tell you not to do it. But I don't care, because I'm not a lot of people. This is a different show. We're not cookie cutter here, and we don't cut corners. This next guy, Jerome Ford, you're going to say, Smitty, he's not available. He's drafted, but I'm looking at the data right now. He's available in 18% of leagues across an average of all the formats. Now, Sleeper has him at 84% rostered, and every platform's different. But you go over to Yahoo, different platforms are going to get different results. But the bottom line is he does not need to be available in that many leagues. It's head scratching. This is a starter. This is a starting running back in the National Football League. Chubb is not coming back anytime soon. He can't play the first 4 games of the season. Even upon his return, he's going to take tons of time to get even remotely back up to speed, and he'll probably never, ever be back to normal because this man tore his knee up from the floor up. While your knee bends like this, his knee did an exact right angle like that, but sideways. Tore everything in his knee, had 2 surgeries, one to repair the knee because it was mangled, and the second months and months later. I think it was at the tail end of December, and he was out there squatting 600 pounds, and people said, oh my God, he's back. He's not back. I came on a live and said, don't look at that and assume he's going to go out there and cut and take hits. Totally different thing. Chubb may never return to form, and this man could win leagues. He could come out of week 1 scoring a touchdown, having 100 yards or 80 yards, total yards and a touch. He could have 2 touchdowns. This is one of those guys that has the capability of having multiple 2-touchdown games during the season, and I think he's one of the bigger steals. If you draft him, you don't have to draft him at anything more than a flex play. And again, having him available in 15% of leagues in some formats and 18% in others, about a 17 to 18% average is mind-boggling to me. And so we're here to talk about it. But even if he's not available in your league because you play in a big boy league, I get that. And I'm trying to come in here and tell you that there's trade value here and to go get him. And I don't know that I want you just poking around to get a 1-for-1 going, because somebody might be like, well, why are you asking about him? Maybe I'll keep him. It's all about tactic, order of questioning, trade 101, psychology. Your boy brings psychology to the channel. It's why I studied it in school, so I could bring it to you. And the order of questioning matters. Hey, what do you want for this guy that you don't want? Or maybe he's a big player that you would take if you trade him to you, but he probably won't. You ask about that. You ask about that. Okay, what other running backs do you have? Well, I have Ford. You get them to say the name, get them to suggest it in a way, subliminal messaging. Hey, what do you want to do for Ford then? Like, I don't know. Is he even, I mean, Chubb's coming back. And they're like, no. They start selling you on it. No, Chubb's not coming back. Then all of a sudden it's their idea that they're trying to trade you Ford. And you could do some sort of trade for him, but you could also throw him into a deal. Maybe you're trying to make room for a kicker in D because you're like me and you scoop up extra players and you don't have a kicker in D and you're like, how do I make a cut? Do a 2-for-1, send 2 players or 3 players and, whatever. So Ford is one of those players I want you to go trade for right now if you're able to. Walking into the rest of these RBs, we're going to say that Chase Brown. Looking up Chase Brown right now, I know I'm going to be shocked when I pull up the amount of availability. It's going to shock you. You're going to be like, Chase Brown, we love Chase Brown. Everybody owns Chase Brown, right? No. Rostered in 78% of leagues. What? 78% of leagues? What are we doing? Chase Brown could win leagues. Grab Chase Brown if he's available. Get in touch with me on a live show through a super chat or whatever to find out who to drop. But Chase Brown should not be rostered in only 78% of sleeper leagues. I bet the number's bigger on the grand scale when you average it all out. I just pulled it up on sleeper. 78% rostered. What are we doing? Now, I normally don't like to talk about players that are at least 30% or more, but I think Preemptive show, week 1 Preemptive style, I think it's important for us to come in and say, okay, trade for him. This is a good trade show. It doesn't have to just be waiver wire show. I think it's good topics, good players, underrated players. It identifies, the waiver wire content identifies that they're good players to go get, because on some grand scale, people are sleeping on them and leaving them on waivers in not a majority, in a 20% clip percentage in leagues. This is crazy. Go get this guy in a trade if he's being valued so low that in 20-something% of leagues, this man's available. In those, that tells me no one understands that he's the starter. Here's a report right here that Chase Brown, heavy workload on opening drive. Brown rushed 5 times for 10 yards and brought in his only target in the Bengals preseason game, 17-14. Look, you can doubt this kid and say, Zach Moss is going to take his job, or Zach Moss is the starter, Smitty, and that could be the case. I'm not saying that this is a lock at all. I'm just telling you that the explosiveness is in this kid, not in Zach Moss. Zach Moss is a good accoutrement. Maybe cuff them together. They're on the cuff board. I might even need to raise them up a little bit. I got Zach Moss and Chase Brown right here. To be honest with you, that cuff is maybe important enough to put even above Davis and Cook. But I'll put them in the top tier above the big dogs. The top 5 are right here. Garendo, Mason, we'll get to some of that in a second. And then you've got the secondary tier. And then these guys are less valuable. And then Monty and and Gibbs are not cuffable. They're standalone players, so that's why Monty's not up in here. Harris as well up in here because Warren and Harris are not really, they're not really cuffs. They're standalone players that go a little bit too high. But, you know, Brown is a league winner. These three running backs are league winners. If we go into week one and they blow up, we will be here talking about how you can win a league by grabbing one of these guys. And again, trade for him as well. This next guy, Braylon Allen, I absolutely love Braylon Allen. I think he's a monster. He was my number one ranked running back coming into the January ranking show that I do, where I don't consider any landing spots. I just go off talent alone. He was my number one. He's a monster. He's big. He's Derrick Henry-like. He'll get maybe 7 to 10 touchdowns even if Breece Hall is healthy. And God forbid if Breece Hall gets abducted by aliens and returns safely after the year so he can still dominate, then this guy's going crazy. He's league winning. He's top 10 running back material in that Jets offense behind the Jets offensive line, rumbling and stumbling for over 10 touchdowns even if he's not starting. Imagine if he is starting. These are 4 really good running backs to preemptively go get via trade or waivers if you can do so, because it might be league winning. He is available in, where's his data? Rostered in 26% of leagues. What a win! Mashed potatoes! 26% of leagues. That is league winning. I mean, we're able to crush with that. What are we doing? I think our community gets so used to drafting players I talk up that we don't realize that these guys aren't drafted. God, that's crazy. That is crazy. Go grab him. Ray Davis, I think he could really be a league winner, guys. James Cook has a fumbling problem. I could just see this guy handling some work and then Cook gets injured or fumbles the job away or something happens because it doesn't feel secure in Buffalo for whatever reason. I know there's a lot of James Cook fans. They're mostly James Cook owners, so of course they're going to get mad at me and defend him. I'm just saying I get a weird vibe that Ray Davis is not going away this year. Mason, if you own, as I just showed you, you own Christian McCaffrey, you better damn well be sure and certain you draft or own or pick up or trade for Jordan Mason. McCaffrey has a calf injury. Yeah, he's supposed to be healthy right now and 100%, but no one knows until you go out there and fire off in a game. So you better have Garendo and Mason. This guy's 28 years old. Look at Eckler last year. Look at Aaron Jones last year. Guys fall off the face of the earth at 28 years old. You can play well for one more year at 28. Derrick Henry's an anomaly. Don't include Derrick Henry. The data is the data. And Christian McCaffrey's 28. He's in his final hurrah if he can stay healthy. And so you got to get Garendo and Mason. And if you can't afford all three, to roster all three, maybe you shouldn't have taken Christian McCaffrey. And that leads me to putting Garendo on this list. That really is something I think is vital to have both of them. And if you're in a bind and have no running backs, you punted running back, you win 0 RB, you're in a big league, you got to make sure you grab both these guys because you're probably getting several starts this year out of Mason and Garendo. And Garendo's the guy they drafted. He's quick, he's fast, he's a really good player. But Mason, if he's healthy, will be the guy. Mitchell's done. So it's these two players only. They're fantastic grabs. Vidal, probably the running back 3 right now. It's Gus, it's JK, and then probably Vidal. He's somebody that might enter the picture later, but the buzz around him's kind of died down a little bit, but it could return. Bigsby, a lot of talk about him looking good. You know, you could pick him up right now, especially if you have ETN. Steele and P. Ryan, who knows who's the starter here if Pacheco were to ever go down. I feel like the hype behind P. Ryan right now could be inflated a little bit and get deflated later, but he's a very dynamic player that has a bunch of skill sets that fit the Chiefs offense. It's a very complex offense to learn. Steele's had a little bit of a jump on learning it. Steele looks really good. Steele's better, in my opinion, especially between the tackles. I could see KC maybe doing a split. Steele up the gut, P. Ryan in passing down situations, but make no mistake about it, Steele is a feel-good story that I could just see having a big game or two. No one's trying to suggest that Steele is going to become a future starter for multiple years in the NFL. But I have a very weird vibe watching him that there's going to be a couple games where he goes crazy, becomes a fan favorite. He'll always kind of be involved, you know, from that point on, but not take over the job. P. Ryan and Steele are pretty good together if you need to take a stab at some sort of running back situation. Let's get into the wide receivers. A.D. Mitchell, I'm telling you, this kid is advanced. You need to grab this kid if he's available in your league. Mitchell is such a dynamic player in a very unique situation, and he's available in about, oh my God, he's rostered in only 64% of leagues. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. You need to grab him. You need to grab him. Do not leave him sitting out there on waivers. If you can trade for him in a trade, he could be a wide receiver 3-4 for you. I really think he's got the talent to take over the number one role in Indy by year end. I know a lot of people think Pittman's the guy, and I think he's good. Pittman's a good player, but this is a player that has the potential to be the number one for his team. I think Pittman's always been a glorified number two. Feels kind of like T. Higgins in a way. I know Higgins fans are going to get mad at me for that, but I do think T. Higgins is capped a little bit. I think he's a glorified two that if he goes elsewhere, he might not live up to the expectations because he's playing with Joe Burrow. He's playing with Jamar Chase across from him a lot of the time. And even when he's, by himself, I get it. It's just a different defensive scheme. It's not the same thing. If Higgins had to go out there as the number one all year, I think we'd see a different player. It's just different. And so Pittman, I like a lot. Pittman's you could say Pittman is what I think Michael Wilson Jr., and we'll talk about him in a second, in Arizona, would have become if the Cardinals didn't draft MHJ. A very good, could play the role of number one wide receiver because there's no one else better around him, but he's not meant to be the top dog. He's just playing that role, and he's doing a good job. I think that's what Pittman's doing. I'm not trying to trash Pittman. I'm just saying this guy could take over and be the number one. And what I saw from him in the preseason makes me think that Steichen and this offense is going to feature him really quickly. So A.D. Mitchell needs to be picked up when he could be a very good wide receiver 4 that could sneak into your wide receiver 3 spot at times, if not more than a few occasions. Yoshi Voss, the Bengals wide receiver 3, seems to have an edge over Burton, which is kind of interesting, but I do like both these guys as, cuffed together in best ball. And I do love Yoshi Voss if you need to take a stab at a late wide receiver. This guy right here, I'm actually going to move him up to almost maybe 1 is Dontavian Wicks. I think Wicks could end up being a league winner even if nobody really gets injured or goes down. But if someone does get injured in that Green Bay wide receiver room, he goes straight into the lineup. And look what he did. They used him very sparingly in the preseason, and this long touchdown grab, and then he goes back to the bench to rest, and the starters aren't. It's crazy. It's crazy what this kid does whenever he gets the football. He's very efficient, and Wicks could be a potential wide receiver 3 league winner. So could A.D. Mitchell. This is how I'd probably rank him. I wanted to reorder that. Here's Michael Wilson Jr. I think he's got a role in Arizona. He could be really good. Leggett might take some time, the rookie, but I like him. Dotson in Phillies, it's a nice spot if someone goes down or gets hurt. Knock on wood. Hopefully it doesn't happen. And even if it doesn't, I think he'll be pretty effective as like a wide receiver 4-5. And then Whittington, this guy in LA, if someone goes down in LA, Cooper Kupp's older. Puka Nacua is very aggressive with his body. If there's any player in the National Football League that's too aggressive for their body, it's Puka Nacua. And so there's 2 potential injury-prone players, one by age in Cooper Kupp, one by the way he plays and his physicality and Puka. This is a guy that might find himself in the who's the next Puka Nacua role for 2024. And he looks fantastic. It almost looks like he's Puka Nacua, the way he plays. And that isn't just Puka Nacua. That isn't just Whittington. That's McVay's offense. And you follow the trend, you follow the pattern, and we say if he's starting, he's going to do good. And he's going to be a great player to go get. Tight ends, I think Isaiah Likely could play amazing football, even if he's not in there as the bona fide lone starter, like meaning Andrews gets injured, but Andrews is already banged up. He'll play week 1, but Andrews is already banged up, and Likely is only rostered in 31% of leagues. What are we doing? You need a tight end, and you're like, Smitty, I need to trade for a tight end. Pick up Likely. He could save you. He could be a top top 6 tight end if Andrews goes down. And even if he does it, I think he's capable of top 10 tight end numbers. So he's fantastic. Don't like bet the farm on it, but it's a fantastic grab. Musgrave is one of my breakout tight ends. We haven't heard much about him, and I think that's good news because he's flying under the radar, but nobody's talking about him, and it's kind of weird just because he's been quiet, but rostered in 50% of leagues, so he's available if you need a tight end, and this is a monster offense, and Kraft has been banged up with 2 different injuries, and we haven't even seen this guy who's a bigger specimen than Laporta. He's a monster. He's 6 foot. Ziggy, how tall is Luke Musgrave?
Luke Musgrave weighs 253 pounds and is 6 feet 6 inches tall.
6'6", 253 pounds. He's a monster. He just got injured last year. So he's a huge prospect this year. Big breakout. As is this kid, Ben Sinnott, who could be the next George Kittle. The next George Kittle? What are you talking about, Smitty? How could this be the next George Kittle? The guy who found George Kittle, Adam Peters, the new GM in Washington, who was the main scout, like the acting GM essentially in San Francisco for years, who found George Kittle. And now he goes and gets a guy that plays just like him, and he looks fantastic. He's been with JD5 from the beginning at rookie camp, and now we have a situation where I think people are sleeping on him because they think Ertz isn't going to go away, and even if Ertz doesn't go away, that's okay. Sinnott is here to stay. This is their future, and I'm going to pull up his roster percentage. He's rostered in only 33% of leagues. So you want a sleeper tight end. These 3 are really my 3 biggest sleepers on the year if we're going deep diving. And they're all 3 pretty much available in a big amount of leagues. Go get Sinnott. Sanders, fantastic. The rookie, bad situation, but sometimes bad teams throw the ball a lot. So Sanders could be a safety net blanket for a Young as he tries to develop a Okonkwo. Same thing for Levis. Could be a safety blanket. We loved Okonkwo last year. He couldn't get it going. He couldn't stay healthy. The offense didn't cater to him. It's a whole different system, and they're going to throw a ton. So this is a good system for him. And at quarterback, to roll through these, look, Justin Fields at some point is going to become the starter. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And it could be at halftime of week 1. It could be in week 4, week 3. But when this guy's on the field, he produces fantasy football numbers. And if you need a quarterback, you're in a bind for any reason, or you just want a great backup quarterback to give you trade depth or whatever, you want to pick up Justin Fields. He will probably be the best pickup at quarterback on the year, and he's available in so many leagues. It's a pretty easy move to make right now versus trying to scramble and make it later. Why not consider this? He's only rostered in mashed potatoes. 16% of leagues. He's only rostered in 16% of leagues. What are we doing with our lives? 16% of leagues. Oh, that's because he's not starting. I guess I understand it, but it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh because we know what's going to happen. So anyway, there's that. I love Fields this year. Bo Nix, love this kid. He was my number 3 QB, rookie QB, and still is. He's absolutely fantastic. Bo Nix is only rostered in 29% of leagues. He could be an outstanding rookie quarterback. If you're in a bind, go get him in Superflex, trade for him. Probably picked up, but he's a good value. Penix Jr., if you have a big, huge roster, like your benches are super big, he's eventually getting in there. Or if you have Cousins, you want to make sure you have Penix Jr. Don't let somebody else pick him up later after week 1 if something happens to Cousins. Penix Jr. could go to the mother freaking moon if he gets injected into the lineup. Taysom Hill is a QB and a tight end in most formats, so this is one of the craftiest tight ends to grab in football, because if he's your tight end, if he's tight end eligible, and you grab him as your tight end, and he goes in to play quarterback, or he just plays running back and quarterback a little bit, you're getting so many points as a tight end. So check your eligibility. When you pull him up, you can just look at his name and it'll say QB/tight end, or it'll just say QB or whatever. But he's a really, really good, even especially Superflex, QB3. Or if you get screwed out of your QB2, you go QB shopping and get him as your QB2. He's going to be playing running back. The team's already said we're going to use him all over the field this year. We're going to use him all over the field this year. And you want to make sure you're a part of that if you can use it. This is it, everyone. This is it. This is the week number 1 preemptive style waiver wire list. I hope this helped you at least cook up some trade ideas as well. That's what this waiver wire show will be moving forward. Even if you, I don't want people to say, I don't have anybody available in my league, Smitty. This isn't deep enough. This is also a trade idea show. Every week it'll be waiver wire, but I'm telling you to go get sleepers, guys that are typically being left on waivers that I think can be league winners. That is a good trade concept for you as well. The Fantasy Football Show is going to be here for you all year long, live whenever news breaks, but this is going to be the rough content schedule walking into the season. Look at these shows. Do you know of another channel, especially with one person that's doing this? Do you know any? I don't think you do. All of the live shows, Sunday, morning show, game recap show after the morning and afternoon games, then the waiver wire show, the show you just saw right here. This show will be given to you on the weekly, and we're doing it Sunday night. We're not going to do it on Monday. We'll always be able to refresh it, touch it up, and reference it. So I will be able to give you adjustments every single day if we wanted to. So waiver show. Then on Monday, it's rise, decline. Then the live shows are obviously with the Red Live 8 p.m. show. 8 p.m. show on every one of these Monday through Friday days. Monday night recap show. So 3 videos on this day, 3 videos on Sunday. Panic Chamber and trade show. Those will be uploads. Premieres, if you will, and then the 8 p.m. show. No graveyard show on Tuesday nights, no graveyard show on Wednesday nights. Ranking show and 8 p.m. show. Start bench show upload, 2 live streams there. One is the Thursday recap show, one's the 8 p.m. show. Friday, we'll have 2 live streams, the 8 p.m. show, and then a live call-in show, and probably some like bonus upload show. I haven't decided yet. And then right here, live start bench show on Saturday night, and probably another additional bonus show. We're doing it bigger, stronger, faster than anybody out there. The Fantasy Football Show is taking over. I appreciate every single one of you. Now get out of here. Live 8 p.m. every single Monday through Friday. Additionally, live whenever news breaks, and live most midnights. Doing drafts with you, and you get on over to Underdog Fantasy, promo code Smitty, and use code Smitty, and they'll give you 50% match on your first deposit, all the way up to $50 or up to $1,000. So if you deposit $2,000, they'll give you $1,000. But the minimum is only $10. So you do $10, they'll give you $5. You get this free pick for week 1, Travis Kelce, 0.5 yards. So grab that. Appreciate you all. Links in the description. Underdog Fantasy, promo code Smitty. This is where we draft. We're doing the week 1 drafts, the week 2 drafts. They're called Battle Royale drafts, where they're best ball drafts, but they're just each week individually. And they're even more fun than the season long ones. So join us. Appreciate you all. See you later.